going to show you how I made this rustic Red Cross sign. Okay, the first thing you're going to need for this project is molding. And this molding is called screen molding. It's about 1/4 of an inch thick and 3/4 of an inch wide. And it's very inexpensive. I think it's like 50 cents like for 8 feet or whatever. Here's a little smaller piece you can see a little better that I've already cut to a size that I need. The next thing I need is a piece of plywood. I think this is just a 1/2 inch plywood possibly that I cut to size that is 15 inches square. This is just a scrap piece. And then the other thing that I will need is some sort of cutting device, and that I'm using today is a miter box and a saw that comes with it, just like that. Then you also need a little bit of sandpaper. The other thing you're going to want is a hot glue gun and some glue sticks, a lot of glue sticks, because everything, all those little pieces of wood that we're going to cut, we're going to glue them all on with hot glue. So then you'll also need a pencil to help you mark how long to cut the pieces, and then a ruler of some sort. I like to use my quilting ruler because you can see through it and it's easy to line up with all the little marks that is on it. I use it for everything now and not just sewing these days. So alright, and then at the very end we'll need paint, of course. But let's get started. The first thing you'll need to do is make a template. I already did that, and this is the template that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to start cutting the molding to fit this template. So I cut this piece already. Then what I need to do is cut another piece to fill up the rest of this. So what I'll do is lay out my molding right next to the piece that I already have cut, and I'll hold them in place, and then I'll mark this spot right here. Then I'll take this over, marked it like that. Then I'll take it over to my miter box, and I will cut it. So line up the molding with the middle of the mark underneath. Oh, here, let me show you. Inside it's got this groove that you're going to cut through. So what you're going to do is make sure that your molding is lined up inside the miter box along the line that you're going to cut. So then you just hold that in place and you cut. Okay, so now I have my second piece cut, and you can see here where it's kind of rough looking. So then I'm just going to run it along my sandpaper to kind of smooth it out, get any of the pieces off. And then what I like to do also is the top side that I'm going to use. You can see one side's got a curve on it and one side's flat. The side that's got a curve, I like to kind of run at an angle over my sandpaper, just to kind of give it more of a beveled edge. I don't know if you can tell that or not. So it's not just so flat, it's a little more rounded. So you want to sand both edges until it's smooth. And then take it back to your original design. So I have two pieces cut, and they fill they'll fill up the design. So then I'll just keep cutting pieces randomly to fill up this whole thing. What I did was, and one thing you want to make sure is that you don't have your seams all line up at the same place. So you want to make them staggered. So the next piece I would probably do another piece like really long, and then cut a short piece to go into there, and just keep working my way down until I have the whole thing cut, and it looks like this. So as you can see, I don't have any seams. Well, there's some that are kind of close, but that's just kind of the way I needed to do it. But none of them are like right on top of each other. They're all kind of randomly placed. So now the next step would be, I laid this out on the design out on my tabletop before I had this board cut. So I just put it on my workstation off to the side, and I just kept adding pieces to it. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is cut a piece of wood for the backing. This is plywood, and I cut a 15-inch square. The design itself is 11 inches by 11 inches. So that gives me a couple inches on either side, top and bottom and side to side, for the background. Okay, once you have all the pieces cut that fill up your design, you're going to want to put it on your base wood and center it as best as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just kind of started with my center point, because it's a 15-inch square, is 7.5. So I kind of made a starting point and kind of worked my way out, just eyeballing it. And then once I had it all laid out, it's easy to move sections around. And then I just took my ruler. Let me show you what I did. Took my ruler and just kind of measured each section from here to the edge and made sure it matched on this side. And then I made sure that each one measured from the end to the end. And then over here is the same. And so on and so forth, all the way around until it looked good and is even. Then what you're going to want to do is hold it in place very gently without trying to move it, and outline it with a pencil. So just put your hand down, here, I'll put it right here, and just trace your design. Doesn't have to be all the way, just, you know, make sure you go around it so you have an edge to work with, because you're going to have to take your whole design off of the board in order to start gluing everything on. So if you know where everything's supposed to be and it's marked, it's going to take the guesswork out of having to sit there and try to make it all even again. So just go around marking all the sides like that. So then when you take it off, I don't know if you can see that or not, but you'll have your design, outline of your design. So when you go to start gluing everything on, you'll know very simply where everything goes, and that way everything will, you can keep it nice and straight. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is I want to cover this edge here, because it's kind of a raw edge that I don't really particularly like so much. So what I'm going to do is cut some more of the screen molding to fit, to make it sort of like a little frame. So I'll measure one side like this, make a mark here. Where's my pencil? Here we go. So then I'll cut it off right here, and then I'll cut a piece for all four sides, and then I'll just glue them on. So it kind of gives it a little framed effect. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut all four pieces for my framing, and I'm just laying them out alongside. I am not mitering the corners at all. I'm just making two that are slightly shorter for the two side pieces, and then two pieces that are slightly longer for the two top pieces. So basically, I'm just going to glue these on there like this. So it'll look like this. I'm going to glue these on before I start gluing this stuff on. So first I'll need to remove all my design, all my pieces from the board. Okay, so the next step is to glue our edging pieces onto the plywood to kind of frame it out. So I'm going to start with the two short pieces of molding that I cut. And starting on one side, I'm going to run a bead of glue down this whole edge of the plywood, and then I'm going to place the molding right on top of the glue, trying to make sure that the bottom of the molding lines up with or is flush with the bottom of the plywood. So that will give me this nice edging piece here that will frame it out. I've already gone ahead and glued on one edge of my framing. Now I'm going to move on to the other side over here. Basically, I found that it's easier to put the glue onto the molding and then put it onto the board. So what I'm going to do is make sure I've got the right piece for the right side. Yep, okay. Then I'm going to quickly add glue down the edge, moving rather quickly. And then glue it on. Holding it tight until it bonds. And it sets up really nice and fast, which is why I like to use hot glue on projects like this. Alright, so I have all four of my sides on. You can see here. So I have my little frame, my framing done. I have a little problem, oh no, on this side. Didn't quite line up. You know, I realized when I was afterwards, my line here, my board that I cut isn't real straight. So I'll need to use some wood filler for that. Okay, now that I have my edging pieces on, I'm going to start bringing my pieces back over and filling up my design real quickly. Kind of like Jenga. Okay, now that we have all of our pieces where we want them, we can start gluing them on. To do that, we're going to use a hot glue gun, and I'm going to very carefully remove one piece at a time, add some glue to the back, and then place it down where it needs to go. Just like that. And keep moving my way up the design. Once you've got your first one done, then the rest of it you're going to just kind of keep squaring them up as you go. You've got a little bit of time before the glue sets, but if you hold the piece in front of it steady while you take out the other pieces, it won't move it. You'll want to do that when you're putting it on and when you're taking it out. Okay, now that I have my pieces glued on and my edgings glued on, I'm going to start cutting pieces of wood to fill in this empty space that goes all the way around. I can do that. If you didn't want to do that, you could just go ahead and paint it up at this point, because I think that would look pretty cool too. So whichever you'd like to do. Okay, so I have finished cutting all the pieces to fit the frame. I ended up having to trim the bottom and the top row because it didn't quite fit in because my math was a little off, but that's all right. So the middle part is already glued in, like we already glued that in, but everything else is just sitting in there for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the outside And then I'm going to paint the middle section, and then I'll move on to the next step. Now I'm ready to do the painting of the design in the middle. And I'm using this craft paint in red. I'm going to use this paintbrush here, a little flat brush like that. And then I want more of like a stained look than a painted look. So I put some paint on this plate, and I added about 5 drops of water and just kind of blended it out. So now I've got like a stain consistency, and I'm just gonna run it over and making sure to work it into the edges, and make sure I coat the sides also, just in case the sides show a little bit. I am finished painting. I have gave the whole thing 2 coats of the watered down paint, which gave me the consistency that I want. And now what I'm going to do is take some fine grit sandpaper, and I'm going to distress the edges to make it look more like this side, which I've already done here, just to kind of give it a little dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and do this all over, kind of working on the edges a lot. Make sure the edges are nicely distressed. So I'm going to do that all over the cross, and then I'm going to also do the edges along the frame. Okay, so I have everything laid out again. These outside pieces are still not glued down. So I'm going to take them out one by one, like this, and glue them in with using my hot glue gun. Just make sure it fits. Okay. Just add some glue to the back, like this, and then place it where I need it. And hold it down. I'm going to start on this side, and whoop, Okay, so I have already painted everything. I have distressed everything, and even the white is distressed, but it's not showing up as well as I would like. So in order to deepen up the wood color that shows through the paint, I'm going to add a stain to the whole thing to sort of give it a more distressed look. In order to do that, I'm going to be using this, which is a burnt umber paint, and what I did was added a little water so that I have like a stain-like consistency. So then I'm going to take a small piece of t-shirt that I've cut up, and I'm going to dip it into the stain and make sure, wring it out a little bit so it doesn't have it all over. And then I'm just going to run it all over the paint, the project, just to deepen everything up. I'll let it sit on there for a little bit, and then with a dry cloth, I'm going to wipe it off. Okay, so I am all done with the staining, and I really like how it turned out.